absolutely enjoyed. SonicFanGal here. If you've heard of me before, be sure you check out my other pages as I have a lot more content to unfold. Also, be sure you subscribe if you're a cool dog like me. Or if you're like totally tubular, you can also like the video early. Yeah, you want some of that, huh? Why don't you hit that like button like a mother trucker and subscribe to the channel or else you're pretty sus. Yeah, that was just... What am I doing with my life? So today we're going to be doing my first ever movie review, my independent movie review. That's right. I'm going to be checking out Chipndale Rescue Rangers. So, I'm sure most of you have probably never heard of Chipndale. In case you guys didn't know, they are actually chipmunks from Disney. And they actually had a TV show, and they also showed up in a bunch of other shows and movies, from Mickey and Minnie to their own show, Rescue Rangers. But Chip and Dale are our best friends who do a lot of fun adventures. They are very big comic relief characters, and they just got a new movie. And for those of you who did watch the 90s show, good on you, because I did too, because I'm from 2000. And I know some of you are like, oh, well, 2000s kids don't know what 90 kids do. Yeah, well, 2000s and the 90s weren't really all that different. Just saying. So, Chip and Dale was a very funny show, and it was very comedic. And that's actually what this whole movie centers around. Now, me personally, I did watch the show growing up, and I saw them in the movies and stuff. I just was never really crazy about them. I don't really know why I never was. I just kind of saw them as, like, you know, comic relief chipmunks, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, which they actually refer to a lot in the movie. And so when I did watch the movie, I didn't really have very high expectations. I kind of was like, you know, this is kind of going to be kind of dumb. But since Ugly Sonic was in it, yeah, that's right, you know, the movie Sonic, the crackhead Sonic that we all still to this day regret ever seeing with our eyes, yeah, he's in the movie. So I thought, you know, maybe it won't be so bad because Sonic's in it. So the movie takes off with a young Dale and a young Chip. Chip becomes friends with Dale and goes from there. And they then come up with the idea of them having human voices, which at first was kind of a turnoff for me, until they then decide to come up with the idea of, you know, them talking like this. And it goes from there. So Rescue Rangers comes out in the 90s, and everybody's partying. You got Paula Abdul and the Cool Cat. You got Roger Rabbit. You got all sorts of these cool cartoons that we all used to watch growing up. And then Dale, he decides, you know, he's got this existential crisis going on where he's like, you know, I'm tired of being bashed by a pipe every other week. And so he comes up with the idea of Double O Dale. Chip didn't really like the idea, and so they got into a fight, thus telling the audience that Chip and Dale are no longer a thing. Chip, however, doesn't really seem to find the issue because he thinks that Dale is probably just abandoning the whole show and just throwing him over. And years later, Dale is then 3D. At first, in the commercials and trailers for the movie, it was weird to me. I was like, why is Dale 3D? That doesn't make any sense. But it turns out that the reason why Dale was that is because he had this surgery. It's kind of like plastic surgery, but he wanted to be 3D, which to me isn't really that favorable, but oh well. And he's at this VidCon for Double O Dale, or Rescue Rangers. There's this chick from Thundercats there, and that's when Ugly Sonic shows up. Yeah, Hollywood really took a toll on the dude. He kind of looks creepy, and it's like they purposely kind of overdid him. Like, he's got like a gut now, and he looks like he smells. He also looks like Sid on meth. I don't know why they did that, because the original concept art of the movie was kind of crap enough. I don't know. Sonic is like talking about how he's in a new TV show where he's in the FBI, and this is foreshadowing for later. And Dale then decides to start talking about, reminiscing of the old times of Rescue Rangers, because he's one of those people that reminisces back to middle school and doesn't have a life now. So then the Thundercat girl, I forget her name, so I didn't watch a lot of Thundercats. She then starts talking about, Chip. Well, Chip, meanwhile, is actually working at an insurance company. And he's talking to people about, boat insurance and house insurance and all sorts of stuff. So Chip goes home listening to metal music, yes, which then showed me, hey, I'm Chip. That's me. And Chip also has a dog, and the dog is like this huge thing. And so it's kind of funny to see the dog walking around in like a little tiny house. So while Chip is at home, they then show the scene where Flounder has been kidnapped, which is important also for later on. When Chip gets this message from Monty, one of the characters from Rescue Rangers. So Chip shows up to Monty's place, and Monty has this addiction to stinky cheese, which I think is a reference to drugs. Chip then throws away his stinky cheese, and that's when Dale shows up. And Dale and Chip don't really get into an argument, but you can tell there's certainly tension in the room. And Monty's talking about, oh man, they're going to kidnap me. And Dale is like, oh, well, maybe we can start up the show again, get rebooted. And that's when, stuff really goes down. Because Dale kind of leaves, Chip just kind of wants, to leave the past in the past and just move on with his life. And the whole thing starts right around when Monty gets kidnapped. And originally, with the detectives showing up, all these detectives are showing up, and especially, from the Gumball show, even, Gumby is there. He's kind of like a detective now. And there's this other chick who's there who... Also, it seems to be big fans of Chip and Dale, which is really funny because the way they make the movie out to be, nobody even knows who Chip and Dale are. And that's really bizarre because did nobody watch A Mickey's Christmas? Did nobody watch that growing up? Because I did. So, Chip and Dale, they decide, maybe we should work on this case ourselves so that way Monty doesn't wind up getting bootlegged, as that's what happened to Flounder. Bootlegged is where they mutilate the cartoon characters and rid them of their copyright and turn them into these horrible looking animations to get them rebooted, to give their shows or movies reboots in the most weirdest ways possible. And in some forms it kind of looks like animation that Meat Canyon would have done, and if he did, that would have been mega cool. So Chip and Dale, they then discover the store where Monty bought the stinky cheese, and they go to this downtown alleyway. And there's all sorts of characters there, including 2000s animations where nothing really looked right and everything looks like the Polar Express, where they just kind of don't really look at anything. So they meet him up at this cheese store, and they start talking about stinky cheese. And it's funny because the chef, he goes from talking really happy and cheery to looking like he's from Breaking Bad. So they go down into this basement where everybody's acting it's the Mardi Gras or something. And he's got the stinkiest cheese enough to where people will actually float to the ceiling. So it's basically a reference to drugs like ecstasy, marijuana, that sort of thing. So Dale, for some reason, he doesn't really explain why he does this, but he wants to wear a suit and a top hat in this scene. He then goes on to say that they're actors, which the guy, he takes this really big news and is like, the boss will really like this. Pete. They don't really clarify who Pete is, and to me, at first, I thought Pete would have been the dog. Pete the dog. Because that's the way they made it sound. And they then meet up with this guy who looks like he's in armor, he's from medieval shows. I don't know. He looks familiar, but I don't remember what he's off of. They then go into this factory where they take they take licensed things. So they take them to the office, and that's where you meet Pete. Yeah, Peter Pan. Peter Pan is now in his 40s. And the reason why he's there is because growing up, he was in Peter Pan, But unfortunately, he got older and puberty struck him like a truck, and nobody wanted him anymore. That's when he got into the bootlegging business. There's also a polar bear that he has as a guard. It's kind of like a reference to mafia stuff. It's a mafia thing. And the polar bear, I think he's from the Polar Express, or he's one of the Coca-Cola bears. But he tries to get Chippendale, and Chippendale then go into the toilet, as that was the only way to escape. Chip then sees a dead Dale laying in a puddle outside, and Chips actually starts crying because, he flew out of there and, it was his old friend. Dale then comes out of nowhere, and turns out it was like this stuffed Dale doll. So they then try to go to this area that's like one of Peter's bootlegging places. And during that scene, Chip is like trying his hardest to fight for Dale, and he winds up actually losing an ear and it turning into a Snoopy ear. And they run into the girl, the detective girl, which I don't really remember her name, so Wolfie, if you don't mind popping it up here now. They go to one of their houses. It never really clarifies which house. And Dale apparently has this big collection of Rescue Rangers in the garage. Now, remember when I said that the detective girl used to be a big fan? Well, where she came from, Rescue Rangers didn't even air in that area. And that's actually what Chip had said. Well, she then goes on to say that her grandma used to record the shows on DVR and send them to her. Which Chip took as, kind of weird. And, I thought so too. But that's actually not the case. I know what you're probably thinking, but that's not the case at all. So Chip and Dale then decide to go to the only source that could be able to track down Pete. And sure enough, it's Ugly Sonic. That was actually funny. Like, I actually died laughing at that part because he's everything Sonic's not. It's funny. And it's also funny that Sega is willing to not only accept their mistakes, but, like, the ugly Sonic is so ugly that they sent him down to Disney. So Sonic's, I guess, an official Disney licensed character now. I don't know. So then stuff happens. They then wind up at, like, the police station where Chip is telling Dale that the girl is possibly a bad guy. And Dale is like, oh, well, the sheriff's actually a bad guy. And they go into this big argument over this, and it's once again, like, conflict before the climax of the film. So Dale accidentally, like, winds up being chased down by Pete and his goons, and Chip actually winds up getting kidnapped. So Chip is almost bootlegged, and he winds up at Pete's lair, where Pete is, talking about bootlegging him and turning him into a reboot show. The detective girl shows up, and sure enough, the main guy, the main sheriff detective, is the bad guy after all. Putty. Sheriff Putty. So that was kind of surprising, but kind of expected. So the detective girl then calls Dale, thanks to Sheriff Putty. And it's funny because Sheriff Putty is actually like a villain for the money. And it's funny because in movies, usually when a character winds up being a bad guy, it's because so-and-so died in this, or so-and-so got injured in this, and they can't afford treatment or something. And that's actually what they made fun of. And I thought that was pretty hilarious because it's ironic. But Dale then tries to get there. But first, he goes to meet his old friends. He met Gadget and he met the Fly. And the Fly is actually voiced by the guy from Allstate. It's kind of weird to see him being so little with like this big, deep voice.
Excuse me. Dale, old chum, the sight of you lights my heart aglow.
It's kind of hilarious. So they get there with Dale riding a rocket ship, like a little firework thing, just before Chip gets bootlegged. So the girl decides to fight Sheriff Putty, which is actually pretty cool because he is made out of putty, and so it's like this whole fight scene is like based on stop motion and realism at the same time. Pete is trying to get Chip to be bootlegged. And Dale's sitting there, trying to talk to him. Trying to say, you don't have to do this. I'm sure there's something we can do. Chip tries to talk to him as well. And Peter Pan goes, wow, when I think about it, you guys are the worst actors ever. So, Sheriff Putty actually winds up dying because Putty and... She sprays a fire extinguisher on him, and Putty, freezes, I guess, when that stuff happens. I'm not really in biology, so I didn't really know. Plus, I haven't taken biology in, 4 years. And he actually breaks. So, Peter, what happens to him, he gets bootlegged and gets turned into, this massive cat, Zorg, Wreck-It Ralph type thing. And they go through all these scenes where characters have been bootlegged as well as movies are being bootlegged. And Pete is actually there, the actual Pete dog. He shows up, and only for a little bit, it's a small cameo, but he's there. And they wind up running all the way down to this dock. And Chip gets the idea for Dale to hit him because that's how those little birds, the little knockout birds when somebody gets, hit or something. They get phone calls, and they all come down, which distracts Pete. And so, with that happening, they get this machine thing that topples down onto him because he falls through. And they wind up, being heroes again. So, what happens to Pete? I think he either goes to prison or dies. I don't remember. So... With that also being said, Dale almost died at the end, and Chip was sitting there telling him, the reason why I was friends with you is because I didn't have anybody else either. And basically, serious and funny go together like glue. And pretty much the message of the story is, you can look back at the past, but you don't have to, overdwell on it, I guess. Because Sonic does show up at the end also. I forgot to mention that. He shows up and actually is the one that throws down the big old thing that lands on Pete. It's funny to see Ugly Sonic as, the FBI because he's, got the little coat going on and everything. It's kind of funky to see that. What all did I think of the Chip and Dale movie? I just gave out the entire movie in a small summary based on my memory, which is crap already. So, oh well. The animation is amazing. When I first saw the trailers for it, I honestly did not want to see it. I thought, it's just going to be kind of dumb, it's going to look kind of cringy and kind of stupid. And I didn't have high hopes. But the animation's actually really good. It reminds me a lot of Gumball, and it reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And if some people haven't seen that movie, don't watch it. It will traumatize you. But for those of you who've seen Gumball, I recommend it because there's actually a small scene of the Gumball characters. Just really tiny, but it's there. Ugly Sonic was actually pretty cool. I think he kind of redeemed himself and has actually made his own character of himself, which is pretty cool, I guess. He's grown to be something else, not just some horrifying meme or a mistake that Sega created, and we all cyberbullied Sega to the point to where they had to change the movie. The plot, the story was actually pretty good. I was actually kind of shocked at the end because they had it to the point to where the girl was the bad guy, and I was actually starting to believe that, but it was actually Sheriff Putty all along. The characters were kind of cool. There was a lot of scenes with a lot of cameos from other Disney movies. That was cool and very fun. And it also kind of reminded me of Food Fight. That movie that actually got sued for all sorts of reasons. I really did like it. The music was cool, the nostalgia, the old 90s, 2000s nostalgia was actually really cool. The voice actors were fun, and even dance scenes, and yes, there were dance scenes. And I thought, the Chip and Dale rapping scene, because there's a scene where they actually start rapping, I was like, oh no, this scene's gonna be like horrible. But it was actually pretty funny. Like, I actually got a laugh out of it because they were talking about, you know, how they can't eat whale.
Cause he's Dale and will never fail. Cause neither of us will ever eat whale. No, never eat whale.
And the reason why they were rapping is because this snake was kind of forcing them to. And that was the only way they could get a distraction from getting Pete's watch. Which was a big plot point in the movie. I'm very pleasantly surprised about the film. And it's actually pretty exciting to watch. And it isn't just like for suspense, and it's not like, you know, a crime thriller or anything, but it's certainly something better than, you know, what I thought it was originally going to be, and that was like just this utter cringe. It also got me really liking the characters from Chip and Dale. So, with that being said, I actually enjoyed it and will probably give it like even a 10 out of 10. Like, I really liked it. And it kind of made me want to actually start watching the show again. Which is why I'm a 10-cent Chip. Yeah. I'm cosplaying as 10-cent Chip from the 90s. Like, just this horrible rendition. Yeah. Don't know how that went, but oh well. So, if you did like this video and you like my little movie review of Chip and Dale, be sure you hit the like button. And no, I'm not going to do the crappy lingo again. Do not make me do that because I will end the video right now. Also, if you also like my channel, be sure you subscribe because I'm trying to get up to 300 subs and we're going to go from there. Also, be sure you check out my books on my Wattpad account because I've got tons of them. I've got 3 books that are finished, and I've got a Your Boyfriend fanfic that is being uploaded every Wednesday. And this Wednesday, I've got some pretty exciting things coming up, so it's also like an Easter egg. So speaking of books, I bet a lot of people never knew this, but I wanted to be a film director growing up. It was a dream I had since I was 5, at least. Like, I can remember loving the video camera, loving movies. I love watching movies. I love movies. And horror is especially a big genre that I love and am very interested in. But due to transportation, life, not really knowing how to use a computer or animate, don't know how to hire actors, didn't know any of that, I never got to do it. So I came up with the idea, you know, maybe I should write instead. And so I'm on the journey to become an authoress. So with that being said, when back in 2006, as some of you have heard, on DeviantArt, I accidentally looked upon Snownado porn. Yeah, that was interesting. But I think it's honestly that led me to 2007, where I discovered Sonic Unleashed at a TJ Maxx store. And I was like, what the freak is that? Well, turns out I went down the Sonic rabbit hole and I became a Sonic fan from there, creating various OCs, creating various scenes, up until the point to where I actually had a movie draft, but I could never come up with it. So all through high school, I've been making this project for a long, long time. And that's when I finally decided, you know, I need to do something. I need to do this. And that's why I'm doing it now. So I present to you Sonic X2. I'll try to give you as little bit of details as possible, as I don't want anybody to know about it just yet. But I did post about it not too long ago, so the cat's out of the bag! Yay! So, that is my OC. That's also SVO. And there's a big reason why. And I try to make it, like, as action-packed as ever. And try to make it suspenseful. And I'm really excited, and I really, 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 really am passionate about this. Like, this has been one of my dreams since I was a kid. And I'm just like, you know, I've put a lot of heart in these characters. I've put a lot of heart in this book. I'm trying to finish it. I don't really have a set date of when I'm releasing it. I just know it's sometime this summer. And I'm really working on it. And it's also the first ever graphic novel I'm making because I'm drawing. I used to draw in high school. I did, but I kind of stopped doing it because I started getting depressed and I had a lot going on in my personal life, so I kind of stopped drawing. And yes, I'm a bit rusty on drawing. So I don't trace like I used to back when I was in 8th grade, but I am still learning as I go. So this is an exciting time for me because this is a prequel to the big project that I'm doing. And the reason why I named it Sonic X2 is because, you know, the series Sonic X. But I will tell you, this story is based off the Sonic Archie comics. If you never heard of the Sonic Archie comics, I suggest you read them or at least look them up because they're kind of fun and exciting. I mean, it's not really my cup of tea for Sonic lore, but it's something. So with that being said, be sure you guys check that out, follow up on more updates, and I'm really excited about it. I'm very passionate about it. And I guess I'll jump off here. So, like, subscribe, leave up the notification bell. Might as well, because I don't really have anything else about it. And you're probably like, oh, well, cool. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. So, thank you guys for watching this, and thank you for more subscribers. I really love you guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. I love all my fans. And God bless wherever you are. And have a good day, good night, good afternoon, good evening, whatever. I love you, little androids. Remember, this isn't goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now.